You're listening to Aaargh, a short story set in the Wyrdwood world. It stars Muse, the King of Cats, from the Cat Sitter Mysteries series, and characters from The Reluctant Undertaker, a dark fantasy thriller, all written and conceived by Angel Leigh McCoy, narrated by the author. Being a cat at a pirate carnival has its pros and cons. On the one paw, there are vicious feet everywhere. On the other paw, people drop appetizing nibbles everywhere. On the third paw, the smells and lights can overwhelm you. On the fourth paw, you see things no one else notices, like a ninja pirate sneaking from shadow to shadow with evil intent. And like a werewolf attacking, biting, ripping, and shredding said ninja pirate. The werewolf raised its head and looked directly at me with glowing amber eyes, blood and drool drained from its maw. I couldn't stop the hiss that exploded out of me. My hackles went up, my back went up, my whiskers went up, and I peed a little. Unimpressed, the werewolf dragged its victim away. Yeah, that happened. So I sat back on my haunches and considered my options. No one else reacted. No screams, no stampedes, no soiled pants. I was disappointed. And I had a choice to make: raise the alarm or not. Since I wasn't a member of the See Something, Say Something Club, I chose not to make a stink. Besides, Big Hairy Werewolf versus bite-sized hairy me? No, thank you. The werewolf and its victim were gone, and my heart rate slowed to normal. Until, boom, the pirates shot off their cannon. My fur tried to flee without me, and I leapt into the air. It would have been embarrassing if I hadn't performed a perfect landing and sideways defensive maneuver. Once I realized what had happened, I licked my fur back down. Nothing to see here, folks. Through the crowd, I spotted a friend, a classy lady named of Caterina Fandelli. She was old, like dusty attic old. Ghost royalty in Wyrdwood, she haunted her two descendants, sisters Isabella and Bluciel. All three were drama queens, but what did you expect? The Fandelli family dealt with the dead. There's nothing more dramatic than death. I eased up to the Fandellis to eavesdrop, and, let's be real, for safety in numbers. I may not be able to outrun a werewolf, but I could outrun the Fandellis. Isabella, the local mortician, was licking pink cotton candy off her fingers. Remember when Mom used to bring us here? Every year. Bluciel, the frustrated cosmetologist, struck a model's pose and looked around. It never changes. Let's go see the bees. She loved those. Caterina, the friendly ghost, noticed me. Projecting her voice into my head, she said, "Buongiorno, King Muse. Are you well?" I lifted my chin. "Fine as frog hair, Signora Fandelli. And you?" Telepathy was the only way I could communicate in words, and I cherished my telepathic friends. That was one thing extraordinary cats, like me, and spooks, like Caterina, had in common. She replied, "Fine as a cat's whiskers." Yeah, I liked her for a reason. The Fandelli trio maneuvered through the crowd. I kept to the back, close enough to benefit from their parting of the dread sea of feet, not so close as to imply I was actually with them. I asked Caterina telepathically, "You see the werewolf?" "No. Is it a sideshow?" "Side split, more like." "Oh, good. I like the funny ones." "Not what I meant. Just keep your ghosty radar up, okay? Aaargh, there be danger in these waters." "Claro, grazie." A barker cried out, "Come see the killer bees! They'll buzz your socks off. The queen has no fear. Watch as she enters the hive. It'll be a stinging good time." "For me and my sister, please," Isabella said to the man at the entrance. She handed over 2 tickets. I slipped to one side and surfed the shadows into the tent. Bees. I'd had encounters with them before. They didn't exist in my home realm. When I first arrived in reality, I was insanely curious about them. How do they smell? Can I catch one? What do they taste like? I can tell you from experience, they taste like pain. A bee sting on the tongue is no picnic. My entourage took seats. I stayed near the exit. The show was typical fluff and hiss. No real teeth or claws. No blood. A man in a black cape came on stage and warned the audience to be ready for a spectacle of terror. Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee played on tinny speakers. A woman dressed in a few scraps of cloth and a honeycomb crown got into a large glass box. Bees zoomed in through the bottom. They swarmed the woman. My skin crawled. The woman didn't react, eyes closed, still as a mouse playing dead. It'd be just like these carny grifters to animate a corpse and pretend it's a real woman. Necromancy for the win. Then she twitched. The twitch became a shudder. The shudder evolved into an odd, buzzing, herky-jerky dance. The audience's choked gasps made my tail twitch with amusement. Someone whispered, "Is she having a seizure?" "Don't try this at home, folks," barked the man on the stage. Excitement waned quickly when nothing more happened. It was as promised, a half-naked woman in a box with bees. Meh. To end the show, a curtain came down around the glass box, hiding it from view. As the music stopped, so did the sound of the bees. The master of ceremonies informed us, "Be sure to purchase a jar of honey from the table at the back. It's magically sweet." I stayed to one side as the crowd filed from the tent. Happy with their honey purchase, the Fandellis exited. I fell into step behind them, more out of boredom than anything else. The Fandellis were trouble magnets. Before long, I knew I'd made the right decision. Isabella Fandelli received a phone call. Even over the carnival's cacophony, I recognized the voice of the county medical examiner, an enlightened human named Beaulieu. He was as attracted to morbid scenes as I was. My ears pricked up. Beaulieu said, "Izzy, where are you?" "At the Jolly Roger Carnival. Why?" "Good. You're close. I need you to head over to the Koss mansion. It's just up the hill from the carnival. Someone found a body. I can't get away. I'm in the middle of an autopsy. Can you go?" Meow. A body. And I had a pretty good guess who it was. In any case, my evening was looking up. We all walked up the hill together, and I was reminded, soon as the grass softened, that I was entering the domain of wealthy weirdos. The Koss mansion had all the trappings of a cat playground. Mises galore ran those hollowed halls and birthed their evil spawn in the walls. Just my bailiwick. 4 bipeds stood on the lawn, hemming and hawing over a lump on the ground. A deputy shone a flashlight on it while averting his eyes. To say it was a body would have been a misnomer. It looked more like pulled pork with an eye patch and pirate boots. The smell swamped me. Blood and poop. Too much of both. Isabella told her sister, "You might want to wait here." "No way." Katerina telepathed. "The Koss familia has been here longer than I have. I remember the first time the Jolly Roger came to Wyrdwood, and Jakob Koss let them set up on the corner of his land. He put it into his will that every Koss after him would do the same." I, too, remembered. I had already been here for hundreds of years when the first pirate carnival hammered in their stakes. Katerina continued, Jacob wanted to marry me, but I refused him. Why? I was a successful businesswoman. I did not need another husband to tell me what to do. She paused, then added, It was a different time. 1929. Isabella pulled a pair of latex gloves out of her satchel. Lucielle raised her eyebrows. You always carry those? Isabella shrugged. You know, it's what I do. No wonder you never get any dates. Sheriff Metzger, one of my favorite humans, that's sarcasm in case you missed it, noticed us. No looky-loos, he shouted and waved his arm with officious authority. Turn the hell around. Metzger was a menace, a human who managed to stay stupid about magic despite living in Wyrdwood. The citizenship had elected him as a joke, and he'd stuck to the job like dog poo to a shoe. Sheriff, replied Isabella, Dr. Beaulieu sent me to take a preliminary look at the scene. He's in the middle of an autopsy and can't get away yet. The sheriff's face soured even more. He pointed at Lucielle's nose. Well then, you get out of here. We don't want anyone contaminating the evidence. I looked around Metzger's fat calves at the 3 other people standing in the crime scene. One was a deputy, one was the gardener, and the other was a Coss. Lucielle raised her hands in surrender. Okay. The Coss woman yowled, You're not listening to me, Sheriff. She was spitting mad, young in human years, and pretty. She smelled like flowers. I'd have welcomed her into my pride of courtiers. It's the pirates, Sheriff. I'm sure they're the ones who broke into our home a few days ago. And now this. Metzger patted her on the shoulder. There. We'll figure out who did this, don't you worry. If it was one of the pirates, then we'll get him. But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, now do we? We all understood that the bathwater, in air quotes, was the money the town made from tourists coming to the carnival. With a grunt of frustration, the woman said, I have to go find my mother. Nope, replied the sheriff. We're not done here. She's not well. Deputy, search the grounds for the mother. She went down to the carnival. Never mind, deputy. She'll be safe there. The Coss woman looked like she'd swallowed a bee. The deputy looked lost. Metzger remained unperturbed. Tell me, Miss Coss, who found the body? Lucielle took a deep breath through her nose, without retching, a feat for which I admired her. Then I remembered that human olfactory senses aren't nearly as keen as mine. She announced, I'm going back to the carnival. I'll see if I can find Mrs. Coss. Lucielle left. I stayed. Katerina stayed too. Did your werewolf do this? Not mine, but yeah. That's the guy I saw get attacked. You gonna tell your girl there? Isabella? No. I learned long ago to let my charges find their own way. I only interfere if their lives are in danger. Wise. Isabella eased up to the body and crouched. She poked at his raw meat slashes. This looks like an animal attack. It was a werewolf, said the Coss woman. Sheriff Metzger had barely enough self-control to keep his laughter to a loud snort. Miss Coss glared at him. This is exactly why I want them banned from our land, Sheriff. They're murderers. I think you need to lie down, miss. You there. The sheriff pointed at the gardener. Take this young lady back to the mansion. He looked at his watch. I need to return to the station. Deputy, you're in charge until Beaulieu gets here. No one else is to come near the body. The deputy visibly paled. and for a moment I thought he'd died and become a ghost right before my eyes. Assuming, wrongly, that everyone would obey his orders, Metzger strode across the lawn toward his patrol car. I thought it Katerina. I hate that guy. Stronzo. She called him a turd. It warmed my heart. Isabella leaned closer to the dead pirate and whispered, "You sure?" As I said, the Fandellis have a special relationship with the dead. I asked Katerina, "What's he saying?" "He did not see who killed him. It happened too fast." "Shame." "He remembers the sound of tiny bells. It was the last thing he heard." Out of the blue, Miss Coss said, "This isn't the first corpse to end up on our lawn since the carnival returned." Isabella stood and removed her gloves. "Not the first corpse?" "No. There've been dead animals torn apart like this, always left in the same spot here. One every night. A rabbit, a cat, a dog." She had me at cat. My butt clenched. Meanwhile, Katerina and I were having our own private conversation. "This sounds like offerings." "Or a threat," I suggested. Miss Coss was going to cry. "My father was a werewolf. My mother thinks he's been reincarnated and is leaving the carcasses for her. That's why she went to the carnival. To find him. To look for the werewolf." No one batted an eye. Not even the human deputy, but only because he was staring wide-eyed at Miss Coss without blinking. Everyone else remained nonplussed. Isabella asked, "Does she know who it is?" "She thinks she does." Miss Coss dug around in her pocket and pulled out a blood-stained white handkerchief. "The killer left this." She held it up. The breeze rippled it like a pirate flag. Written in permanent marker with no punctuation were the words, "I'm back with the Jolly Raj, my darling." The ink had spread, but it was still legible. We all took a moment of silence to consider the ramifications. Our contemplation was interrupted by a sudden, nearby wolf howl. The sound made me hunker close to the ground. Isabella asked, "Do you think it's your father, reincarnated?" Miss Coss shook her head. "Only if he's a child. My father only died 10 years ago, but my mother isn't seeing reason. Her mind isn't what it used to be." She looked down the hill toward the glow of the carnival. "I have to find her." The unspoken sentiment was that the old human was in danger. We all followed in Miss Coss's wake, leaving the poor deputy alone with the body. "Why," I asked Katerina, "would someone pretend to be this woman's dead husband?" "She's rich." "Okay, good reason." Isabella asked, "If something were to happen to your mother, who would inherit her estate?" Miss Coss gave Isabella the side eye. "I would, I suppose. The bulk of it, anyway." If it had been possible, I would have elbowed Katerina. As it was, I heard her harumph and knew she'd had the same thought I did. As we entered the carnival, Isabella and Miss Coss began asking every carny whether they'd seen Mrs. Coss. They all knew her, and many had noticed her. They pointed us that-a-way. Blue Ciel stood in the middle of the fairway, looking cross, as usual. "Blue!" Isabella called. Their twin connection kicked in, and Blue Ciel looked up even though there was no way she could have heard her sister over the din. Mrs. Coss is here somewhere. I just can't find her." "We know. We think she's in danger." "What kind of danger?" "Fangs and claws kind of danger." "Oh, maybe we should split up." Miss Coss said, "Good idea. I'll go north, You guys go east and west." A petite pirate ran up to us. "Ahoy! I hear ye be looking for Mrs. Coss." "Yes," said everyone except me and Katerina. "I spied her breaching the bee tent not long ago. If ye hurry, ye'll maybe catch her." More excited than I anticipated, I ran ahead, bobbing, weaving, and dodging feet. I skirted the outside of the tent and ducked inside. And there she blows. The carnival queen of bees was on the stage, dressed in hippie wear, rings on her fingers and bells on her ankles. Far too pleased with herself, she circled the clear box, tapping her fingers against the glass. Mrs. Coss was inside, pleading, "Let me out." "I shall not," said the queen. "Once you're dead, this land will belong to the carnival forever." "Mamma mia," said Katerina. "You have to do something." She was right. I could hear the others outside arguing with the barker to be let in. He was resisting. It all came down to me. The bees had entered the box and were swarming Mrs. Coss. She clawed at the door, screaming. I ran headlong toward the stage, leapt up onto it, and the werewolf stepped out, stage right. I put on the brakes and ended up sliding, sprawling, scrambling, twisting, freaking the fuck out. By the time I got traction, the werewolf had jumped over me and was running toward the box. With one wrenching pull, he broke the door open and snatched up Mrs. Coss. The woman looked so tiny in his grasp. I couldn't avert my eyes as he began ripping and tearing into... No, that's what I expected him to do, not what he did. He put Mrs. Coss gently on the floor and gave her a shove. She slid across the polished wood toward me. "You!" shouted the queen. "You killed Brandon!" I thought, dread pirate Brandon. I snorted like the sheriff. The werewolf lunged for the queen, but she was slippery. "Protect your queen," she commanded. The bees rose up, murmuration style, and as one unit wove a ballet around the werewolf. When they attacked, the swarm resembled a giant python wrapping its victim and squeezing. The werewolf clawed and bit at the beasts, but he had no chance of getting them off. The queen conducted her bees like an orchestra, waving her hands with terrifying grace. Her hair flew around her head in a storm only she felt. I didn't dare move. Isabella, Blue Ciel, and Miss Coss got past the barker and ran to the stage. They helped Mrs. Coss to her feet. This was when my brilliance shone through. I watched my friends edge toward the exit, then, purposefully on purpose, knocked over one of the hot floor lights. It landed, touching the stage curtain. Before long, it began to smoke. The smoke disrupted the bees' concentration. Their ballet fell apart. Fire spread up the curtain. Still writhing, the werewolf collapsed to the stage, and the queen saved herself. She took the bees, those that hadn't been crushed, with her. No one stopped her. Katerina loomed over me. "Are you all right?" I took stock. No stings, no missing toes, tail intact. It was my lucky night. "I'm good," I told her. The werewolf hadn't fared so well. He was changing back into his naked human form, covered in bee stings. He was older than I expected, like Grandpa on the porch older. He twitched a few times, then sat up. He stood. Before I could stop him, he picked me up and carried me out of the smoke, away from the fire. "I don't need rescue," I told him, though he couldn't hear me. Nevertheless, I was grateful. Isabella, Blue Ciel, Miss and Mrs. Coss were gathered together, a safe distance from the burning tent. Pirates ran this way and that, chaotic in contrast to the elegant bee swarm. They threw buckets of water on the fire. The naked werewolf turned codger set me down and hobbled over to join the others. I followed him. Mrs. Coss's eyes grew round and large. "Marcus?" "Yes, Pia, it's me." "Marcus, why didn't you reincarnate in a younger body?" Poor thing sounded very confused. "Honey, I never died. I joined the carnival. I'm sorry. I have so many things to tell you." Miss Coss stepped forward, putting her arm around her mother's shoulders. "What the hell? You terrorized us." "I was trying to warn you. They were plotting to kill you." Marcus Coss had a pleading tone in his voice. "Please, I'll explain everything. Can I just come home?" Mrs. Coss stared at him with wet eyes. Finally, she said, "No." She tugged on Miss Coss, and the two of them turned away. "It's my home, too," Marcus said. Mrs. Coss shook her head, but didn't look back. "No, it isn't. My husband is dead. Go away." "Familia," said Katerina in my head. Family. "I wouldn't know," I replied. "But that Stronzo left them for 10 years. I wouldn't let him back in either." "You saved his life, you know." "I know. I couldn't help myself. I'm one of the good guys." "What will happen to the carnival now?" "Who knows? Maybe they'll be back next year. Maybe they won't." Marcus Coss ran off into the night. Katerina and I watched the tent burn until she had to go. By way of goodbye, she said, "Ciao." I replied, "Meow." So, a ninja pirate assassin, a bee queen, and an aging werewolf. Yeah, that happened. I weighed anchor, hoisted my mast, put the wind at my back, and set out for home. The end. You've been listening to Aaargh, a mystery starring Muse, the King of Cats from the Cat Sitter Mysteries. To read more stories set in the Wyrdwood world, visit angelmccoy.com. You'll find links to more free stories there as well. All text and audio content, copyright 2024 by Angel Leigh McCoy. No Gen AI was used to produce this tale.